Hello everyone, welcome to episode 17 of the Fiberista Files. Today is Monday, December 13th. I have a used envelope full of notes for you folks today. Last week I told you that I was going to go over on this podcast, sorry, weird hair there. I was going to go over the very minimum that you need. So not only do you need fiber and yarn, you need to dye it, you need to package it, you need to photograph it, and you need to sell it. And then once all that's happened, you need to ship it. So these are the things that you need in order to be able to do that. As far as the dyeing process, you need the dye, you need some kind of gloves. You're also going to need, with your heat source, you need pans or the turkey roaster or whatever it is that you need. And those need to be dedicated. Dyes are not good for you to ingest, somewhat obviously. So make sure that whatever you're using it only for yarn and fiber. I use disposable turkey pans, that are big turkey roasters, and I just keep reusing them until they get holes in them. So it's really not terribly expensive. Secondhand stores are great places to find stuff like that. Also, one of the things that you, once you're done dyeing the yarn or fiber, you're going to have to dry it. What I used in the beginning is a hanger. You can see this is where the vinegar has changed the color of the hanger. None of this hanger plastic has gotten onto the fiber. I use a hanger that has a wide center beam, whatever you want to call it, for the fiber to lean over so that it doesn't get pinched. There's a couple reasons for that. One, I hate the pinch. And two, if you use the thin wire hangers, you may find that the hangers rust, what with the wet and the vinegar and depending on what other chemicals you use. So I hung this on my window and I just hung it. I had forced hot air heat in my house, and the hot air vents are all right in front of windows. So I hung this on my curtain rod, and the fiber hung down, and it just dried in the heat from the oven, from the furnace. Once I progressed to doing more at a time and they would not fit on hangers, I got one of those collapsible wooden clothes racks. And those I can put several pounds of fiber on at the same time, and in the summer I can dry them outside. So you need, some sort of roundish hanger or dryer rack. You need, of course, the fiber and yarn. If you are buying fiber or yarn that is pre-divided into 4-ounce bundles, that's great. You don't have to do any weighing. However, if you get yarn off a cone, or if you get, say, a pound of fiber and you want to divide it into 4-ounce bundles, you need a digital scale. I talked about this last week or the week before. This is just a cheap digital scale. Does grams and ounces, and it comes with a little clear plastic dish. So I can put the fiber, when I pull it off of the big bump, I pour it into here. When it says 4 ounces or 113 grams, I move on. That's incredibly helpful. You also will need it to weigh packages when you are shipping, because you pay shipping by weight, and you're going to need that to know how many ounces your package is once it's all taped up and the packing slips inside it and all of that. You're going to need that. The digital scale is very, very important. Looking at my list here, 2 other things that you're going to need. Once you have dyed the yarn, you may decide that you want to reskein it. Most yarn looks better reskeined. Not all of it, but most of it looks better reskeined. Fiber, obviously, you don't have to worry about this. But 2 tools you'll need. One is a niddy noddy. Simple, very simple tool. They exist all over the place. This is a 2-yard niddy noddy. When I first started using the cones of yarn, I was doing them by hand onto a niddy noddy off of the 3-pound cone until I got to a certain number of yards. If, for example, the cone had over 1,700 yards. Anyways, I divided it out so that each individual skein needed to be 434 yards. That is 217 times around this. So I would take it off the cone and I would wind it onto my niddy noddy 217 times, tie it off, and that would dye it. This takes forever. And I'm not kidding you when I say forever, and your arm is exhausted. You have one giant Hulk trapezius muscle and arm from constantly maneuvering the niddy noddy around. But it can be done. I know, because I did it. If you're very lucky, you'll move on to something like this. This is a Swift This is the first Swift I ever got. It's kind of small. If you know the distance around from peg to peg, you know how many inches that is. You can do some quick math and figure out how many times around do you need to get to do the 434 yards or however many yards you're doing. The second one, the one that I used just until recently, was made out of PVC pipe, and it was actually bolted to a doorway in my house, and it was bigger, and I only had to do 200 and I think I just had to do 200 times around. I think I had it calculated out, and I had adjustable holes, and the pegs would come out, and so I had it so that if I did 200 yards, then I had a skein, and the pegs were much longer and bigger, and I could do 3 skeins of yarn at a time. So if I had 3 cones, I could do 3 400-yard skeins in the amount of time it took me to do one or half of one with the Nitty Naughty. So, Swift, Nitty Naughty, digital scale, hanger, dye stuffs. You also are going to need, let's see, that takes care of dyeing and drawing. You're going to need to photograph. I have a very basic digital camera. This is a Sanyo E1090. It's a 10 megapixel camera. I don't use the 10 megapixels. Etsy pictures cannot be more, it says than 2, but really, I take my pictures on the 5 megapixel setting with this, and they load just fine. Very simple. It has a 3 times optical zoom. I don't zoom. But this takes the pictures, and I've got the viewfinder here so I can see the pictures when I take them. In addition to the camera, I use a light box. I will link in the show notes down underneath a easy DIY light box that you can do out of a cardboard box and tissue paper. I very rapidly moved on to skirting plastic, the plastic that you use around your house in winter. If you live in colder areas, because it does the same light filtering techniques, but it's not as destructible as the tissue paper. It took me 10 minutes to make it. I've gone through 2 so far. You can buy light boxes. If you've got the money, go ahead and do it. It's not necessary. If you can't find a box big enough to do a light box out of, if you have a window that gets really good full-on sunshine, tape a piece of tissue paper in the window so that those shadows are filtered and the light's filtered a little bit. And you can take a picture of the fiber right from in front of your window. I've been doing that the last several weeks because it's kind of cold here in Maine this time of year. So I do that so that I don't have to worry about trudging all of my stuff outside. Also good in high wind conditions. If you have a light box, it's very lightweight. And if it's a windy day, your light box will go flying, and so will the fiber that you are photographing. So if you're using a light box, you also need some kind of white or black cloth or poster paper in order so that you're not seeing the desktop or tabletop that you're taking the pictures on. Also, if you, let's see, you're going to need to store your fiber. Oh, I forgot that too. I'll come back to that. If you're going to store your fiber, I'm going to show you all this other stuff here that I was holding it. Get a moth-proof container. These are clear plastic totes. They cost me $6 a piece at Walmart. They are where I keep all of my fiber in them. I did clean them all out when I got them to get rid of some of the chemical plastic smell. I didn't want that on the fiber. But they keep it away from the animals. They keep it away from moths. They keep it dry and safe and ready to go. And depending on how full you pack these, the fiber really especially won't compact down unless you want it to. So that's pretty good too. If you have a customer who doesn't want to buy a hank of yarn but wants a center pull ball, you should probably pick up one of these. This is a ball winder. This one is made by Royal. Knit Picks has some ball winders that are, I think, $20 a piece. Definitely get this. This takes your hank of yarn. If you put it on the Swift, and you can wind up a center pull ball for your customers, and they'll be thrilled with you. That is something that I do offer in my shop. If you want that, just ask. Notebook. Oh my god, this is so important. I have kicked myself I don't know how many times for creating a skein of yarn that I did not write down how I dyed it. This just says basically what I dyed, what the name of it is, what colors I used, and the method I used to dye it. If I space dyed it, if I kettle dyed it, if I over dyed it, all of that stuff tells me how much I used. If I used 4 cups of one color but only a half a cup of another color, it tells me all that. If I did a half value of a certain dye, it tells me that as well. One of the things that I haven't done in this notebook thus far, and I wish I had, was actually draw a picture of the yarn in the container and say, okay, the red went next to the light blue, which went next to the dark blue, which went next to the purple. If I knew the order in which they had been dyed, that would have been a good piece of information to have. You need a notebook. If you want to do repeatable colorways, it is essential to have this. Something that's not really as necessary, but you might find that you want it. It definitely helped me decide what I was going to dye and how, are color cards. This is Cushing's Perfection Dyes. They're the acid dye color cards. This is ProChem's one-shot dyes. These are actual pieces of yarn, not just a picture. This shows you what the dyes look like when dyed on yarn. Incredibly helpful if you want to know whether you want buttercup or maize and the very subtle differences that is. Also very good to see what your yarn does as opposed to this. My water changes a lot of these colors to something other than what is here. Very different. So it's definitely worth having. You need a label. I did this one in Microsoft Word. It says Highland Handmades hand-dyed yarn. It has the colorway name. It has the yarn information on it, how many yards, what the wool content is, the care instructions, how many yards, blah, blah, blah. This one I had my web person make for me. This was done in Adobe Photoshop. It is much more elaborate. It has trees on it, and it's kind of blurry, but it has all of the care instructions and everything else that you need. It's just much more elaborate. This, totally acceptable. You need some kind of label. You can handwrite these. I've seen them done effectively. However, the more professional you are now, the better it will suit you later. Really quick, I don't know if you guys know that I have worsted weight in the shop now. This is one of those worsted weights. This is a 100% fine count wool singles yarn. It's a worsted weight called White Ash Worsted. This one is called Out of Africa. It's bright shiny yellow. Very, very soon, I am also going to have bulky weight, yay, in the shop. You can tell I do not have a label yet for the bulky weight, but I will have one before they go up. The bulky weight is 100% Peruvian wool. It has got this happy little twists to it. I love them. This one is called Oxford. It's maroon and light blue and dark blue. Also in the shop now is a metric but ton of hand spun. A lady who has gotten out of spinning contacted me and told me basically, you know, hey, can I sell you my yarn? I need the money to get into, she's starting a new hobby, so she wanted to go through that. So she said, can I send you my hand spun? And I said, well, rather than sell it to me and have me pay it up front, why don't I sell it for you? And then I'll just take a percentage and you can get the rest. And she said that was a good idea. So I have probably 40 or 50 skeins of yarn that are slowly getting listed to the shop. Check those out. Hand spun yarn is the perfect gift for the holidays. It's wonderful to knit with. Night and day difference knitting with hand spun yarns versus commercial yarn. Definitely worth checking out. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that I needed to tell you about. There's bugs here. It is like 50 degrees in Maine in December right now, and all the bugs have woken up. It's disgusting. Nope. I think that's it, guys. I'm sorry that this seems like such a rushed episode. I know that YouTube lets you have 15-minute episodes now, and that somehow still isn't enough time. So until next week, guys, happy spinning and knitting.